Hello everyone, this is part 25 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto couldn't believe it. He was finally there, the village of his mother's ancestors. The village itself was in ruins, but he had kind of been expecting that. However, based on the ruins, he could tell that Uzushiogakure used to be a great and powerful village. Jiraiya guided the two of them over to a collapsed building just outside the center of the village, which he decided would make for a good base camp. He went around, putting a few barrier seals up, providing them protection. While it wasn't a common occurrence, there were occasionally bandits who would come to the island and try to loot anything valuable that may have been in the ruins. Despite that, Jiraiya was still confident that they had not managed to break into the archives of the village, which is where he suspected the clan scrolls the Uzumakis had were being stored, under the protection of B seals. No one without Uzumaki B was going to get into the clan scrolls, and thankfully for him, Naruto was an Uzumaki. "Sir Ero-sennin, what are we going to do first?" asked Naruto. "Are we going to get the Uzumaki scrolls, or are you going to teach me Fuinjutsu?" All of the sudden, Naruto's stomach began to growl and Jiraiya laughed. "We'll start examining the scrolls tomorrow. Let's grab a bite to eat and I'll teach you a few things as well," said Jiraiya, taking a scroll from his pack and unraveling it to reveal a seal on it. "Alright, so what type of seal do I have on here?" It looks like a storage seal, but I don't know what those markings around the center are," said Naruto. I guess he has been reading the scrolls a bit. That's not exactly a standard center for a storage scroll, thought Jiraiya. Well, you're partially right. It is a storage seal, but it's also a preservation seal. Jiraiya released the seal and much to Naruto's delight a few bowl of ramen puffed into existence. After taking a few slurps of ramen, Naruto was surprised that they were still warm. "Wow, I can't believe this ramen is still fresh," said Naruto, finishing off the first bowl and moving on to the second one. "That's the preservation seal for you. It's not permanent preservation, but it's good enough to keep a few bowls of ramen fresh for a couple of days," said Jiraiya. Naruto then moved on to the third bowl, and the fourth bowl. Well, it looks like they weren't having any more ramen during the trip. Jiraiya then went into explaining the basics on how to make a storage seal, starting with the simplest storage seal, and he would eventually go into the more advanced storage seals, like the preservation storage seal he used on the ramen. It was getting late in the night and the two were about ready to turn in for the night. However, Jiraiya wanted to have a little fun with the blonde. "Hey Naruto, about the last chapter of the book you wrote, thanks." "Oh, yeah. I just thought it was the least I could do, after everything you've done for me," said Naruto. What do you mean by that?" asked Jiraiya. "Well, you know, everything. From training me back in the Chunin exams, to coming to get me once you figured it was Orochimaru that sent us on that mission, to telling me about my parents, and even teaching me Fuinjutsu. No one's ever really done that much for me. You know, you might be an old perv, but you're pretty cool at times," admitted Naruto. Jiraiya smiled warmly upon Naruto saying that. "Thanks Naruto. So does this mean you'll stop calling me Ero-sennin?" "Nope," said Naruto without any hesitation. Jiraiya's head dropped in defeat. "I just call them as they are, and even if you are a cool ninja, you're still just a perverted old sage." "HMPH, says the boy who wrote a perfectly good adult scene and invented the S-jutsu," said Jiraiya. "If I didn't know better, you're a perv as well." "What?" refuted Naruto. "I'm not a perv." "Then answer this. When you saw Hinata in that dress, what were you thinking?" "I'll bet it was something perverted," said Jiraiya, getting that perverted look on his face. Naruto's face instantly went red and he began sweating profusely as he searched for a not-so-perverted answer. "Well, you see, check and mate. I'm sorry Kit, he's got you there," replied Kurama, getting a laugh out of it. "Gahaha, alright, that's enough messing with you for one night, Erogaki," said Jiraiya, flustering Naruto. "Hey, who are you calling perverted, Ero-sennin? At least I don't go wandering into women's bathhouses." replied Naruto. Sure, sure. Whatever you say, said Jiraiya, as he crawled in his sleeping bag. I doubt you've never snuck into a woman's bathhouse to invent that wonderful jutsu from Kami. Whoa, exclaimed Naruto. Jiraiya and Naruto had come to what the Uzumakis had called the Hall of Sealing, the place where they had stored all of their knowledge on sealing techniques. They were standing in the middle of a large domed structure with the only light coming through a hole in the ceiling. However, through a careful arrangement of mirrors, the light managed to illuminate the entire hall. Hey Ero-Sennin, what are all these compartments? Asked Naruto. Looking around the circular room, he could see the walls lined with various compartments. Oh those. You see, every Uzumaki family had their own notes and techniques on sealing. While a lot of their techniques were common knowledge amongst the clan, every member had a few seals and techniques that were unique to their family. Think of it as a time capsule, said Jiraiya. This room was built underground and protected by a number of barriers that we already came through, which is why his room is still intact despite the entire village being in ruins. Cool. Do you think any of them are mine? Said Naruto. Well, it really depends on your ancestors. Those lockers have B seals on them that are designed to open with the B of a descendant of the person on B. Their lockers around each other, so there may be a chance there is more than one locker if your ancestors left multiple lockers, explained Jiraiya. Alright, their archives are over there, beyond those doors. However, I need you to open the doors for me. Right, replied Naruto. Jiraiya and Naruto made their way across the room to the double doors, with Naruto unlocking the B on the archives. Now, I'll be in here researching for a little, said Jiraiya, catching the look on Naruto's face. And it's not that kind of research. Now, why don't you go and see if you open any of those lockers? You know what to do, just smear some of your B on the locker. If the seal opens, then it's yours. Let me know what you find. Oh good, you're here, said Kakashi, reaching the top of a cliff. I've been here for nearly 2 hours, said a slightly irritated Sasuke. Well, you see, there was this little bird that needed my help. Just can it, said Sasuke. Kakashi chuckled. Kind of like last time, isn't it? Asked Kakashi. Yeah, although there is more on this cliff than the one we camped out during the exams, said Sasuke. The last time, they were on top of a small bluff overlooking a barren wasteland. This time, it was more of a high cliff overlooking a forest that they had decided to camp out on. So what are we doing this time? Glad you asked. We'll be here for a little more than a month before heading back to Konoha and leaving for the exams. And while we're here, you'll be needing these, said Kakashi, pulling out a few weights from his pack. Are those? Well, kind of. Lee just had training weights on. These are chakra weights. Put 'em on and I'll explain, instructed Kakashi. Sasuke put the weights on, which felt like nothing. Once they were secured onto his arms and legs, Kakashi smiled and activated a seal. Sasuke was instantly thrown to the ground. The weights had to weigh at least 500 pounds each. What the hell? Swore Sasuke. Those are chakra weights. Right now, they weigh 400 pounds each. However, they were designed to have their weight reduced to only 10% if you constantly floated chakra into them. One problem you have is your chakra capacities are lacking. While you'll never be Naruto level when it comes to chakra reserves, training with these on will certainly help you build them up, explained Kakashi. Sasuke tried putting some chakra into the weights and struggled to get himself up. It took a few minutes, but he finally got the amount of chakra to balance out and he could move with a little bit more ease. He looked over to see that Kakashi had the same thing on. What? You didn't think you were the only one training, were you? Wait, you train? I thought all you did was read those books and walk around looking for old ladies and cats to help out, said Sasuke, making fun of Kakashi's excuses for being late. Nope, I train as well. Besides, if I didn't train with you, then you would probably surpass me in skill in a year or two, and I can't let that happen, now can I? Said Kakashi, smiling. Sasuke smirked, knowing his teacher wasn't all that lazy. For Sasuke and Kakashi, a few days passed. This was mainly physical conditioning and Kakashi trying to build up Sasuke's stamina and chakra reserves. Whenever Sasuke began getting frustrated with this, a simple phrase like, Naruto would have run 10 laps around you by now, was usually sufficient to get Sasuke back on his feet. By the end of their first week, Sasuke could already feel the increase in stamina he had from wearing those weights, not to mention he had noticed an increase to his speed as well. Perhaps Lee had something going for him using those training weights. Not to brag or anything, but I told you before that I know over 1,000 jutsu, said Kakashi. Sounds like bragging to me, muttered Sasuke, quiet enough for Kakashi not to pick up on it. Anyways, I'll be teaching you as many of them as we can do. Now, as I said last time we did this, your primary element is lightning with our second element being fire. I know the extent of your fire jutsu and I happen to know the lightning variant to your Kaiten, dragon fire jutsu, explained Kakashi. He took out a few wired shuriken and tossed them at a tree, wrapping the cords around the tree. Raiten, lightning dragon jutsu. Electricity and sparks traveled down the wires just as the fire did in his dragon fire jutsu. Jolts of electricity were sent through the tree, splintering it, until it eventually broke. I need to remember to bring Tenzo with me next time if we don't want to run out of trees. Sasuke followed Kakashi's lead, throwing a set of wired shuriken at a tree. He then proceeded to channel lightning chakra into the wires. The electricity traveled down the wires and into the tree, splintering it, but not breaking it, like Kakashi's tree had done. Not bad for a first attempt, said Kakashi. That was better than my first attempt at it, but even with your Sharingan, you may be able to copy a jutsu to the point where you can use it, but you're not going to master a jutsu the first time you use it. Naruto was getting frustrated. He had spent nearly the past 2 hours going through lockers. He was starting to get to the end of the lockers, and so far, nothing. Grr, why won't these stupid lockers open? I've already shown that I really am an Uzumaki by getting Ero Sennin through the B seals, now why won't these stupid lockers open? Shouted Naruto. Oh, having any luck there? Asked Jiraiya, joining Naruto. No, none of these stupid lockers want to open. Said Naruto, sa slightly B-hand into another locker. This time, the seal glowed and disappeared. Hey, there you go, said Jiraiya. Taking a look on the door, the plaque read, Haru Uzumako. Why do I recognize that name? The excited Naruto opened the door to see what was in this vault. Inside were a few scrolls, a framed picture and what looked like a letter. Naruto picked up the picture and saw a man standing next to a woman who closely resembled his mother. In the mother's arms was a small baby wrapped in blankets. The woman had the same long red hair as his mom, but her eyes were a little too narrow to be his mother. The man standing next to her was also a red-haired man. His hair was shorter and a little spiky. He looked to be wearing some sort of shinobi gear. His face was more defined than his mom, but he noticed that his eyes were the same as his mother's. Naruto picked up the letter, wondering what it said. My dearest daughter, Kushina, I hope you have grown up well into a strong and beautiful woman like your mother. I sincerely wished we could have seen you once more, but with the combined forces of a Wagakure and Kusagakure on our doorsteps, it will be a miracle if we see you again. I have sent you to Konohagakure, our sister village, for your protection. Should you ever find your way back to the great city of your ancestors and come across this letter, know that your mother and I have always loved you. Love, Haru Uzumaki and Hayase Uzumaki, your mother and father. These were, said Naruto almost speechless. Looks like they were your grandparents, Naruto, said Jiraiya, placing his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Here, this will make it easier finding the rest of your lockers. Jiraiya had taken one of the more ornate scrolls from the locker to find that it was actually a family tree. They found the next locker a few lockers below the one that belonged to Naruto's grandparents. According to the family tree, this belonged to Naruto's great-grandfather, Morio Uzumaki. Again, inside the locker, he found a number of scrolls and this time a rather unique forehead protector. This one had the Uzumaki spiral carved in it. Buried deep in the back was also what was a bound red and black book. After taking a quick look through it, Jiraiya realized that it was a book of highly advanced seals, the ones that the Uzumakis were famous for. The next name on the tree was the one that was most surprising to Jiraiya, and given the book of sealing techniques they found in the last locker only gave more credit to the possibility of what he was thinking being true. The next name on the tree read, Shuichi Uzumaki, Naruto's great-great-grandfather. They found the locker a few lockers over and Naruto placed his bee on the seal while Jiraiya was busy holding his breath, turning purple when Naruto felt the urge to scratch his back before opening the locker. Just open it already, shouted Jiraiya, releasing all the air that he had held in his lungs. Geez, why are you in such a hurry? Got a hot spring that needs researched? Asked Naruto. Just open the locker. I need to know something right now, said Jiraiya. Naruto sighed at his impatient master and placed his hand on the seal. The seal glowed before dispelling and Jiraiya's jaw nearly dropped. Naruto opened the locker and his jaw dropped along with his master's. Sitting inside the locker was a quadrilateral cage hat with the Uzumaki insignia on it. Ero Sennin? Asked Naruto. He really wanted to know now, was his great-great-grandfather a kage? Well, what do you know? Looks like you're related to two cages, Naruto, said Jiraiya as Naruto's eyes widened. Shuichi Uzumaki was the Shodai Mizukage and the one who made the founding alliance with the Senjus and Konoha in the beginning days of the villages. He was also one of the best seal masters of his time, which explains the book his son had in his locker, explained Jiraiya. Naruto then did what was expected as he grabbed the old cage hat from the locker and placed it on his head. There were a few tears and smudges, but what else did you expect of a 100-year-old hat? What was under the hat made Naruto's eyes grow wider, if that was even possible without his eyes taking up all of his head. Underneath the hat was a katana with a black hilt wrapped in red bindings in a black sheath with a red wave-like pattern. At the end of the hilt was the Uzumaki icon. Naruto unsheathed the sword and it was brilliant. He didn't know much about swords, but even he could tell it was an exceptional piece of craftsmanship. Hey, if that's what I think it is, then what a find, said Jiraiya. Ha, wait, what? You know more about this, said Naruto. The Azumaku Shio no Ken, Sword of the Swirling Tides, I believe. It's about as famous in the shinobi world as the Nadaime Hokage's Raijin. It was thought lost when the city was destroyed. Who would have thought that it would be here in the archives and that a little brat like you would be the one to find it, laughed Jiraiya. Wow, really? What makes it so famous? Asked Naruto, jumping up and down, nearly knocking the hat off his head. I really can't say, not too much is known about that sword, but the legends say it ranks right up there with the Raijin and the Seven Swords of the Mist, so it must have some kind of special power or something, said Jiraiya. But still, what a day it has been. Who would have thought that you would be directly related to the Shodai Mizukage and find this old sword? Hey, Ero Sennin, does that mean you'll teach me how to use a sword? Asked the already excited Naruto. Well, you see I'm not so much of a sword expert, said Jiraiya. Oh come on, what's the real reason you won't teach me? It'll take up too much of your research time, said Naruto. Gah, said Jiraiya, coughing in response to Naruto's comment. In all honesty though, I'm no sword expert. Although I think I might be able to pull a few strings with the toads. Some of them are rather skilled in kenjutsu. Naruto was so happy as he and Jiraiya returned back to their camp. He had his hat full with scrolls and that journal they found. Unfortunately, he was a little too happy that he didn't notice one of the scrolls fall out from the hat and roll underneath a pile of rubble. When they got back to the camp, Jiraiya basically went through all the scrolls they found. Some were sealing scrolls, some were kenjutsu and taijutsu scrolls that detailed the Uzumaki style in each discipline, and then there was one scroll led, the treasure of the Uzumaki. Naruto couldn't resist as he undid the seal on that scroll. Releasing the seal, a small black book popped into existence. Naruto opened the book to see what was so special about it. Yata was heard all across the elemental nations, especially in Konoha. Many people there recognized the voice. Hey, was that Naruto? Asked Sakura. A few of the Konoha 13, Team 8, Team 10, and Sakura, were at the training ground sparring with one another when they heard the scream. Sure sounded like it, replied Kiba. Even when he's not in Konoha, he still finds a way to make a scene. So what do you think he did this time? Asked Ino. I don't know, knowing Naruto it was probably some stupid or perverted jutsu, said Sakura. Hinata, who was there as well, went red with the mention of perverted jutsu. Her Naruto would never do something like that, would he? HVE some faith in your comrade, said Shino, startling most of the genin there. He probably just mastered an amazing technique. Well, I heard Master Jiraiya mention something about sealing and fuinjutsu. I think he got past an important stage in fuinjutsu, said Hinata. Naruto. Fuinjutsu. Ino said, having an incredibly difficult time connecting the dots. Nah, he probably devised some way to prank the village, said Kiba. At this time Shikamaru and Chuji got done discussing something with one another. You're all wrong, and Chuji and I have 100 ryo that says you are, said Shikamaru coming forth. Fine, Mr. Smarty Pants, said Ino. The remaining 4-5 genin there accepted the bet as well, even sweet little Hinata. So, what do you think it was? It's troublesome really, but there is only one thing Naruto gets that excited about, said Shikamaru. Everyone else was listening in for Shikamaru and Chuji's answers. Munch, ramen, munch, said Chuji in between handfuls of chips. In about a month time, Shikamaru and Chuji would be a couple hundred ryo richer as it did indeed have something to do with ramen. Naruto had just hit the jackpot. The treasure of the Uzumaki was none other than a collection of about a dozen special ramen recipes. He couldn't wait to get back home and see if Chuki could whip up a few bowls of this. A few weeks passed with the general day looking something like Jiraiya would be in the library researching and he would be teaching Naruto the basics of designing seals. Naruto would try to make a seal, test it, and watch as it blew up in his face. As an end result, Naruto would get a little frustrated and Jiraiya would get a laugh. Something encouraging would be said to Naruto and Naruto would laugh along with Jiraiya. It had taken about 2 weeks of dedicated practice before Naruto finally succeeded in making his own working storage seal. Jiraiya figured that they would celebrate that night by breaking out the remaining ramen he had sealed away. It wasn't as good as the first time they had ramen, but the preservation seals had done enough to keep the ramen still tasting good. Don't worry Naruto. The hard part was making that first seal, but now that you know how to do that, storage seals should be no problem. You know how to make the central components for the seal and rest is just adding on, said Jiraiya, giving his students some encouragement. The rest of that week was spent with Jiraiya finishing up the research and Naruto continuing to practice the storage seals. He was showing much improvement with the storage seals and now it was only a matter of time and practice before he had the concepts of storage seals mastered. The same could not be said for Jiraiya's project. For 3 weeks, he had been sorting through countless scrolls on seal removal and various other things, only to come up with nothing so far. Nothing that could remove the caged bird seal without K, the original bearer. It wasn't until late in the evening on December 29th, the day before the fishermen were scheduled to pick him up and they would return to Konoha, that Jiraiya finally found something. The funny thing was that it was not a scroll on seal removal. It was a scroll on a certain type of medical seal. However, this seal worked along the lines of cell preservation and regeneration. Perhaps if this could be applied to the removal seal, the deaths of the neurons, brain cells, could be prevented when the caged bird seal was removed. This would definitely be something he and Tsunade would have to look over when they got back. But Jiraiya smiled nonetheless. He was finally over his sealer's block that had stopped his progress on finding a way to remove it and his brain had begun clicking again with ideas on how to get rid of that accursed seal. Naruto, let's go, said Jiraiya. Naruto, in the middle of scribing his own storage seal, lifted his head. Did you find something that can help, Ero Sennin? Asked Naruto. I think so. I'm going to need Tsunade's help with this one though. Let's head back to camp and get packed. The boat will be here for us early tomorrow morning, said Jiraiya. They left the archives with Naruto trotting along ahead, thinking of what everyone would say when they saw his amazing sealing talents. It was then that he felt a tug on his jacket collar as Jiraiya quickly pulled the blonde behind the crumbled wall of an old building. Hey, Ero Sennin, what? Naruto was interrupted when Jiraiya put his hand over Naruto's mouth. Shush, he gestured, pointing over to a few people walking through the ruins. Naruto could see that they were ninja. When one of the ninja turned their head, he could easily see which village they were affiliated with. Sound. Jutsu. Kaiten. Dragon Fire Jutsu, C rank, the user breathes fire along a cord or any type of long object, which rushed straight forward, catching the enemy on fire. Uses Uchiha Sasuke. Raiten, Lightning Dragon Jutsu, C rank, like the Kaiten. Dragon Fire Jutsu, lightning is channeled through a cord until it reaches its target, sending an electrical current through the entire body. Uses Uchiha Sasuke, Hitaki Kakashi. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.